Today's message is not a new one, but a timely one. When I first started talking on this subject, it was more like a prophecy. It was like that which is to come, but it wasn't happening at the degree that it's happening now, so people don't pay much attention if things aren't happening, because it doesn't affect them right at the moment. But today, I think we are living this time of how can we navigate ourselves through the chaos and the crises that the world is moving into very rapidly and quickly. This week has been a challenge, and we need challenge. Losing my one of my best friends in all the world, that's a challenge for me, because of her great faith and vision to be well and to beat the cancer and all that she did and the positiveness that we all talk about did not bring her out of that place of not having to face her transition. But who am I to question that? That's it. There's a greater wisdom that's always going on than we see. And so I give myself to that. But even the thing that's going on politically in the world today, instead of finding myself trying to be so critical of it and judgmental of it, is trying to see it as a way that it is measuring where I am in my spiritual and where I am in my evolution of consciousness. Am I able to deal with these things from a higher elevated place in myself than to be pulled down into the lower parts of myself that's so attached to my emotional body? The more I'm attached to the emotion of anything, the more I'm knocked out conscious of it. Then I move from being reactive or reactive to reactive is what I'm trying to say. In other words, I just start moving out of how I've been programmed, how I've been wired by society, culture, my religion. All those things have wired my neurons in certain ways to react to certain things in a certain way. But that's when we are losing our power. That's when we've given our power away to too many things outside of ourselves, and we need to bring our power back. That's what we're trying to deal with on Wednesdays right now, is to really find how we can call our powers back and call our powers out into our consciousness. And that's what we're going by doing the 12 facets of power that Charles Fillmore donated to us. There is a spiritual technology. I'm going to talk 21st century language here. There is a technology, a spiritual technology, called quantum personal transformation technology. That's a big term, but I'm going to explain it in more simpler ways. We're just going to call it chaos or crises precedes transformation. And I know of no way around it. I think we've all tried to find shortcuts. I think that's why we've been vulnerable to fall for a lot of people's magical solutions to our spirituality, to enlightenment, by not accepting process. And I've talked about this a lot, that the thing that is not mentioned in so many religions is more process. And we need to know that there is a way of dealing with what's going on in the world. There is a way of how we can get through it and come through the other side as a more evolved being and purpose. There's a way in which that we can rethink things. There's a line in the Course that says, think again. Think again. Don't be stuck with only one way of seeing anything, but know that in your inner power there are options on how you can choose to use that power to see things. This is a time, and I'm looking at a group of people that I know are not new to metaphysical and spiritual thinking and principles. Some of you have been in it for decades. You've been taught divine law. You've been taught spiritual law. You've been taught metaphysical or metaphysics. And now it's time to show up with all of that under our belt and be who we have said we want to be. This is an opportunity as never before for growth. But if we're constantly bringing ourselves down into the lower aspect of ourselves and staying in judgment and being critical and seeing it from a third dimensional point of view, we're not showing up. And I don't think that the planet is going to have this shift that we talk about until enough of us show up and reach that critical number.
That's true.
You can't do it by yourself anymore. That's why you've been drawn together with other spiritual people that you share in the vision. Again, the Course tells us that we cannot grow by ourselves. We grow faster together. That's why the master teacher said, where 2 or 3 are gathered. He sent them out by twos. He didn't ever let anybody be a single island. And the Bible says the islands shall fall into the sea. And the sea is a metaphor for humanity, the sea of humanity. And the thing is you get sucked in and you lose yourself in mass consciousness. And you start acting like they do. And you start talking like they do. This is a time for you to rise and shine. For the light has come. And it said, shake yourself from the dust. The dust of a 3D density world that has covered itself by a veil that has been placed over the human mind and heart. What I guess I'm saying, or what I feel Spirit would have me to say to you, is a scripture that says, where much has been given, much is required. Are you living your potential? Are you living at the level of consciousness that you claim and talk about with others? Are you living your word? Are we, not you. I'm a we. I'm just sharing with you some of the things that have been on my heart this week. How can I take advantage spiritually of the time that we're living in? It's becoming increasingly clear that the study that is happening today in spirituality is the evolution of human consciousness. It is, and has become for a long time, the new spiritual science. This is where spirit and science has come together in such a beautiful way from old Newtonian teachings of separation. When I say Newtonian, I'm talking about seeing the world like a clockwork. It's your body's like a clock with parts in it. And either you try to fix the part, if you can't fix the part, then you cut the part out. Newtonian is what most of our medical model is built on, and so many models are built upon this separation of the body, mind, and the spirit. And that's continued for a long time and ingrained itself in the collective unconsciousness of our planet that we see things that way. And because we see that thing that way is because that when we look at someone, we see race, gender, and everything on the external before we make a decision of who they are. We've been taught to see things outwardly. But today we have to learn how to take the veil off our minds and hearts and begin to see things inwardly, and that's what a metaphysician does. Look beyond the appearance, look beyond the world of illusion, and to see the essence and the heart of all matter. Practice this presence. We are entering into a time in which no longer science is separate and mostly this has happened in the last 150 or 170 years with this ability to go deeper to find the quantum level of things. The quantum level of things. This is a science that will bring unprecedented interest in interpersonal psychology. Now these are words that are not, I was not allowed to use in religion I was growing in. You didn't say the word psychology because that had to do with the mind. And that's one thing they did not want us to deal with was the mind. That's why they did not want us being in anything with Eastern thinking or schools of thought because they recognized the mind. So there wasn't, I don't know about your religion, but I didn't get a lot of what I call spiritual psychology, how the mind works. I was never told how the mind works. I was never told that I have a right brain and a left brain. I never was taught about any of these things because that was not Christian enough. It's not Bible enough to talk about those things. Also in this will come together ecology and the more mystical aspects of old religions forgotten. Early religions, before they were organized into these dead institutions and organizations, and where truth and revelation was replaced with doctrine and dogma. That will be restored back to those who are stepping forward and becoming spiritually minded. And the most of all that what will come together today is a new spiritual common sense. Don't edit out good common sense. And that's just a nice word of coming to a place in yourself to have that spiritual moment of an epiphany in which you have an aha moment. When something becomes clear, something you couldn't find in any book or any text or from any teacher, minister, or however. You couldn't find it because it was all along inside you. But because of you that are participating, here's the key. If you're participating, and I want to say to you, participating is not just coming here on Sunday and or Wednesday. I'm talking about participating in life. I'm talking about in between time, on your own time. Meditation. Contemplation. Spiritual inner research. All research does not come from reading other people's books or other people's texts. Oftentimes, I research my own heart and spirit. I research my own mind a little bit to see if I can find something deeper. And that's the most powerful of all knowledge that can enter into your consciousness. That is truly Gnostic consciousness. direct between source and human without filter in it whatsoever. Dr. Brian O'Leary, a former astronaut and co-founder of the International Association for New Science, and I quote, says, "We are heading into a new renaissance of science and consciousness. We're on the threshold of our own transparent evolution." And he ended the talk by saying, "The genie is out of the bottle. There is no going back. The Red Sea is closed behind us, and only the promised land lies before us." And I wish we could just jump over into the land of milk and honey and the land of all of the great beauty of the promised land and just edit out the wilderness, the desert. Much was done in the desert for the children of Israel. Much was done. First, one of the main things that was done was a cleansing, because they came out of Egypt a little bitter. I think I'd be bitter too if I'd been a slave for 430 years. Some of you understand yeah. That fits in a lot of ways. Anytime a people have been enslaved for generations after generations, even if you get free from it, you still bring with you your experience of that. Sometimes people get out of things, but things don't get out of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The children of Israel got out of Egypt, but Egypt did not get out of the children of Israel. And the whole covenant with this thing, that the children of Israel could not go into the new land with the stuff that they had made for themselves in the old land. You know, I saw that on a paper. You can't heal from the same environment that made you sick. So they could not enter in the way in which they came out of Egypt with all of the issues that they had, the bitterness, the anger, the hurt, the whatever it was that was going on. It had to be cleaned and cleared out and not brought into the new land. Now, if you look on a map, you'll see how close where Palestine, which is what it was at that time, there was no nation of Israel till 1947, but it was Palestine. But that's the land that was promised to the Israelite people. But if you look on a map, it's extremely close to Egypt. It's just a few days travel. And yet they're in the desert for 40 years when they could have made it in maybe 40 days. And the Bible said because they weren't clear, that he said, I'm going to change every day into a year. And that's for where the 40 years come from. By the way, 40 is the number of trials. It's the number for trials, 40 years. Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, fasting and dealing with his own ego, mind, and whatever. So 40 shows up a lot, but it's a time of going through a trial. So I don't want to get on, that's one of my favorite stories to talk about because I think it's so us where we are in this thing that we're kind of feel like we're out in the desert of things. But we're in here. But when they came out, they had a sense of war. It said there was a man of war. But that generation disappeared in the wilderness. Now take that metaphysically, not as human beings, but in us, that through what is going on in us, that will disappear is some of our old lower human attributes and characteristics that have to do with separation. See, we can't go into the fifth dimension or the whatever new earth, I don't care what you call it. You can't go in there and start still dealing with racism. You better get it done here in the wilderness. You can't go over there and start dealing with sexism and genderism and any other ism that we're dealing with in this third dimensional world. You don't go over there to do that. You do that and you're not an initiate to go and inherit the land until all of that is cleared out of you. We've got to get into things that are more clearing based. Whether it's saging, using crystals, tuning forks, any energy work whatsoever that so many do are all wonderful things that have been given to us to help us clear some of this old karmic 3D stuff that got stuck into the deep subconscious of the shadow of our psyche that is so piled up that it's emerging on the body politic as our pathologies. You can only take so much. My body can just take so much toxic stuff. I can eat so much crap. Next thing, I'm going to have a pimple here, I'm going to have a breakout there, I'm going to have something there because my body is saying enough toxicity. I can't handle anymore, so I'm going to bring it out on the surface so you can see what you've been doing that you weren't even aware you were doing. That's what's going on right now. There's a time in which we must see what we've been doing and suppressing and not working with and dealing with is now emerging. That's why we need a certain kind of spiritual facilitators or healers, if you want to call it that. I hope that makes sense to you. Yes. Beverly Whitehead's article says, as she shared the Hopi native prophecy indicating that many of the ancient teachings and ceremonies to heal the earth would be lost during this time, meaning this time of our 3D, to heal the earth. But it says there will be those without training who will listen to their heart and reclaim the memory of the old ways. Oh my goodness. Who was I to start teaching DNA work when this hit me 30 years ago and it came into my consciousness about DNA? Who was I to deal with DNA? I was not a geneticist. I was not a science. I had no academic teachings or certificates to give me that position in a 3D world. But I started getting spiritual downloads concerning DNA. Are you seeing what I'm saying? What's happening is the age of reductionism. You know what that means? It means a box for everything. I always think of the place down the road from me. It's a orthopedic place, I guess it is. I have never seen a place that has a doctor for every part of your body. If it's your wrist, you got to go to the wrist guy. If it's your ankle, you got to go to the ankle guy. If you this, you got. I mean, it's just compartmentalized ridiculously. Now we know that in the midst of all of that medical model, there is integrative, holistic medicine that is showing up too. There is a more interest in the last couple of decades in acupuncture, acupressure, energy meridians. It's been slow, but it has been gaining momentum. You can find an integrative medical doctor here in this town. Some of us go. to the integrative doctors. You can find that now. You can find the gray area. You can find the bridging of what's happening as we're moving from this reductionism and Newtonian into a more blending of things that have been really lost but being rediscovered. Also, anything, and I have to say this, anything that you are drawn to, as I was drawn to vibration and sound in the form of tuning forks and DNA and all that stuff, how I feel I was able to do those things as a modality. This is my idea, is because I have been all those things in a past, and it is recorded in my Akashic record. I did have an experience once of a glimpse of myself standing before a great, interesting crystal I'd never seen before in Atlantis. And people were coming and standing, and I was doing something with vibration to bring healing to them. So why would this be new to me if I've already got the experience registered somewhere in the recesses of my soul, my personal Akashic file? And that's what this prophecy, Hopi, is saying. Those who have been caretakers to Mother Earth will be recalled again because they have already had the experience of it. Cindy, I'll use you. I've never seen anybody that will get out there in the earth and work with the flowers and work like she does. That's a passion with her. Most of you would not go that direction at all. But somewhere that is a strong experience registered energetically as a pattern within her, so she draws from that experience and that passion. Well, I could go to Kathleen. I could go to so many of you who, Leslie, some of you that I know, Maria, some of you who do specific things. You know what your spiritual purpose is because you've been trained for it. You've been preparing for it. And it's emerged. I hope that makes some sense without getting into it. If we're truly on the threshold, being on the threshold of getting this building is not quite there. Wonder if you just stopped at the threshold and stood in the door. Being on the threshold is not entering fully into something. So if we're on the threshold of our own transcendent evolution, then wouldn't we expect transcendent evolutionary energies to be clearly at work? In other words, all these things we're claiming and praying for would work. Now let's quit putting our head in the sand and trying to make a reason why it's not working. I think there is a place where it's going to start really working. It's not going to be just a ceremony or just something we say or something that we do or even something we get trained in and get a certificate and get a label and call ourselves this and call ourselves that. I think there is a whole new people rising up out of the masses. The book of Enoch says, I shall bring the light, and the light shall bring forth a people out of a people. A people out of a people. And the people out of a people are a people that are connecting into their many, many experiences of their past and bringing it in the power of the present. I'm telling you, there is a call. Have you ever heard of the clarion call? It's called the clarion call. It means a clear, direct, intense call It's kind of the one you gave your kids when you said, come and eat, and they didn't. I said, come and eat. They didn't. Then you gave the clarion call. You better get in here and eat right now or you're going to miss your dinner. Then they moved. That's a clarion call. This intense call is for action. So, wouldn't there be highly advanced techniques for individuals in global healing and enlightenment around the turn? The answer is yes, and the answer is no. The genie is out of the bottle as far as the emergence of enlightened thinking. Oh, we got that. Come on, we got that. We're pretty smart, spiritually, people. You really have. You've learned a lot. You've read books. You've been to workshops. You've sat under some tremendously powerful teachers and speakers, and you've just accumulated a whole lot of interesting, powerful information. We can have good, deep conversations with each other. So even though we have the emergence of enlightened thinking, and yet at the same time we're experiencing the highest level of crises in human history. Being on the threshold of, rather than fully experiencing our transcendent evolution, puts us between two worlds. Oh my God, that's where we are. That's not the easiest place to be, is between two worlds. The overlapping. The age of Pisces isn't completely gone. It's still hanging around. The shadow of it is still in the beginning of Aquarius. We're living in the overlapping of two ages. I like to call that the gap. For the prophet said, I see a gap, and who shall stand in the gap and make up the hedge? The prophet further looked down the corners of the future and said, I see multitudes and multitudes and multitudes in the valley of decision. These are prophecies. Prophecies that I believe are of our time, that people are not sure what they want to do, where they want to go, what they want to do with anything. I think people are going to come by the groves at some point and be looking for direction into a new level of consciousness and evolution. Yeah. Now I'm talking to you and me, that I'm not the only one here that is trained enough to get up here and do this. No, you may not be called to a center or church or great throngs of people, but every day you are called to minister. I'm not a minister. I'm sure most of you would say that. If somebody would call you a minister, I'm not a minister. Yes, you are. You minister to people every day, whether you're standing in the bank line or the grocery line or wherever it is, and somebody just all of a sudden feels your energy and turns around and says, hello. When they do that, Spirit is saying there's an open door here. Talk. Open your mouth and I'll fill it. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Has it ever happened to you? And all of a sudden stuff is coming out of your mouth and you realize that you're in communication, spiritual communication with that person. That's ministry. And here at HeartLight and anywhere else that is similar to a training spiritual center is training you for that time that's coming. So much I could say on that, but of course we can't talk about this without talking about the little caterpillar and the butterfly. Oh my God. All roads lead to the caterpillar and the butterfly. There is a place in which the caterpillar must give away to who they are becoming. We are standing at a threshold that we must give away to what is coming in. And the reason we don't do it well, because we, one, have been programmed not to like change. We don't want our world that disrupted, although we say we do. We don't, because we've made it so familiar, we've adapted to it. Even with its pain and all the things that are so-called wrong with it, you've learned to make it through it. Now you've got an energy investment. You know, I've been through heart surgery. I've had part of my lung taken out. Oh my God, I can't believe sometimes when I stop and think all the things that I've been through and feel pretty fine and okay about it. You all have been through your stuff too. But now I got to be careful because I'm going, I can make it through anything. Any other surgery that's coming up, any other thing that's coming up, because I made it through that, I can make it through this. Because I've built a rapport, a familiarity with something that I know that I can survive. And if I do that, I'm just going to end up a survivor. We got to get out of the survivor of the species. We've been doing that for millions of years. Millions of years, it's been the survival of the species. Like that's the goal, is to survive. No, the goal is to thrive. The goal is life and more abundantly. The goal is joy and exceedingly. It's not to fill your cup, it's your cup flows over. So that you have enough for you and anyone that comes into your world. For if they thirst, give them water. And it says the water comes out of your belly, shall flow rivers of living water. And when they drink of this water, they shall not thirst. And I shall be the bread that shall come down from heaven. And when they shall eat of the bread of the substance of their being, they will not hunger again. I got a few minutes. So, coming from a spiritual science idea, researchers have watched in amazement as more and more of seeds of tranquility magically continue to separate themselves from neurotic brothers. This is taken from a research in showing how that atoms and quantum particles transform themselves into other transformed particles. Like a hydrogen atom becomes a lithium atom. Now that's not important you understand those two, but what it understands is that most everything in the quantum world says that everything is made out of the same things. There's not separate things that make up a hydrogen atom. There's not separate things that make up a lithium atom, and on and on. It's the same things. It's the rearrangement and the pattern that makes it become what it is. But if you bring them down to their quantum state, they would all be made out of the same electrons, protons, neutrons, neutrinos, quarks, and so on and so forth. It's all the same thing. Everything, you, this room, everything, all comes from the same ground. Holy ground. Maybe we need to take off our shoes, which is the bindings of our mind, because we stand on holy ground. There is not a Kathy molecule versus a Kathleen molecule or any other. You don't have individual separate molecules. You have universal molecules, sound waves, and all these things. We all share it whether we like it or not. You share it with the most person that you dislike. You share it with the person that you are the most angry at, the person you're trying to get away from. There's nowhere at the quantum level to get away from anybody. You used to say in the church, there's nowhere to hide, there's nowhere to run. It's too high, I can't get over it, and it's too low, I can't get under it. I like to throw in those old church things that I learned back then. Why? Because you live, move, and have your being in it. But they watched as the hydrogen atom was ready to transform itself into the next thing it was going to be. It began to be unstable at the molecular level. I want you to get this. It became unstable. Or chaotic. Now, I want, this whole thing of the microcosm and the macrocosm, I'm talking real small here, but I'm telling you this reverberates into what's going on in the world today. Because everything is made of the same thing. So whatever happens on the small scale is reverberating and finding its resonance in the octave of all reality. Just like I can take a tuning fork and I can make a C tuning fork and have another C tuning fork, and without touching it, it will find a sound from this one. They will resonate with each other. So I guess it's how we resonate, how we vibrate, that's going to make the difference. And that should be what our prayers are. Our prayers should be vibrational and with sound. Maybe light sound. So we would say that the molecules are like neurotic brethren and sistren. Don't want to leave you gals out. Brethren and sistren. Yeah. Becomes completely breakdown. The whole thing that makes it what it is breaking down to its fundamental principles, its ground. Then they observed something so interesting that happened is one of those neurotic molecules separated itself from all the neurotic chaos that was going on and went over here and just sit, I know what it sits, but it came over here and separated itself and became totally away from the chaos. I'm sure it took a deep breath. But that wasn't enough, because remember, I told you one can't do it. But then another molecule comes and joined this molecule. And now there was two. Remember I told you how the teacher sent people out in twos? And where two or three are gathered in my name, I shall be in the midst of them. When two agree, it shall be done. Out of the ark was two, whatever that means. But you'll see this a lot of times, because when things become two, they create an energy field bigger than the parts. They create a synergetic morphing field that's greater than the sum of the parts. Well, you that understand then the universal law of attraction begin to work, and the two begin to attract two more. Are you with me? And then the four begin to attract four more. And pretty soon we had developing over here, well, now this is the words of science. Science called it the forming of a pod. P-O-D, pod. You know, like dolphins, and they call them pods when they have a community and group together. We're kind of a pod. We're trying to be a pod. We're working on it. And this kept happening until this magical thing happened at a certain level of those molecules had reached critical mass. Now, everybody here knows the 100th monkey. If you raise your hand if you know it, I don't have to repeat it. Oh, well, that's not everybody. Okay. On an island is a particular type of monkeys. They loved sweet potatoes. That's what they were fed, was sweet potatoes. Well, when they threw the sweet potatoes out, it was in the dirt, in the grit, and they liked the potato, but they didn't like the dirt and the grit of it. That wasn't fun. So one female, of course, one female monkey said, there's going to be a better way. And goes down to the water and washes her sweet potato. Monkey see, monkey do. So another one joined her. Then two joined her. And when they had reached their critical mass number, the same species of monkeys on an island far away begin to wash their sweet potatoes. And that's called the 100th monkey story. The Bible speaks of 144,000 who would learn a song that no man could learn or teach you. Now, song here means a message. It means a vibration. It's a musical term. It's a song. So you have literalists who are out knocking on doors trying to convert 144,000 people so they can be closer to God in heaven. But like everything in the Bible, which, by the way, of every 5 verses in the Bible, it mentions a number. Even the hairs on your head have been numbered, it says. I don't know what that means, but it does say it. It says every hair on your head has been numbered. The number of man, 6. Then you got the 666. Oh my God, 666. It's a powerful number. They don't want you to know the 666. Because there's 6, because there's 3 6s, because 3 6s make 18, which is 9. And when you know 3, 6, and 9, you have a key to the universe. Why would they not make you afraid of the 666 like it's some evil, horrible sign to keep you away from it? Because there are 6 molecules in each atom, carbon atom, tells me that there is a stored up light consciousness in the blood system that is getting ready to be revealed. Look at it in the book of Enoch. I've used it for HeartLight forever, that the thought adjusters are here now, and they are, through frequency attunement, releasing ionized consciousness in the blood. And this blood will bring forth a people out of a people and a light out of a light. I'm not playing. This is big grown-up stuff now. We had a particular chord in the tuning forks that was considered at one time made into the devil's chord. I think it's a diminished tritone. Yes, thank you. But it was powerful. Anything they have made us afraid of is because it holds a portal or a pathway into self-remembrance and self-power. So here's what I will close with. I believe today that we are putting the call out. By the way, the 144,000, I want to get to that. 104,000 being a number is not a number of bodies. See, that's what the ego always counts bodies. Yeah. So they think now it's 144,000 bodies, people and bodies. No. Let's break it down in Pythagorean numerology. 1 plus 4 is, and 4, and 9 is completion. So I said, if I want to be a part of the 144,000, what is it that I'm completing? And it came just like a lightning out of the east of my brain and said, let's take a moment, the completing of all incarnations in third dimension. Just like that. I didn't have to think about it. It came in an hour and a day when I thought not, and said you will have no more incarnations in 3D. This is the last one for you, and this is why this one has been so intense and challenging and for you, because you've lived over 4 lifetimes in this one. And you are not alone. There is a critical mass of souls that signed the same contract you did and has gone through this too. And now we must out the call to bring them together until we reach critical mass, and then we shall shift our planet to a love light planet. Feel that. Feel that. This is your purpose. Your purpose is not just to be happy. I mean, being happy is great, but my gosh, it's very conditional about being happy. You know, what makes you happy? What makes you happy can make you unhappy. You fall in love with somebody and you're happy, and then they do whatever they do to you and you're unhappy. Through 3D, for me, I'm looking for purpose. I'm looking for why do I even exist? And I think people are looking for that whether they even know it or not. They're looking at the depth. So yes, and I have been assured by Spirit that all and enough souls have incarnated into this generation that can make up the critical mass if we continue to put the clarion call out to them. Oftentimes we call them light workers. Light workers, working with light. What is light? 5th dimension photon bundles of data and information that is breaking through our 3rd dimensional world. Feel your purpose this morning. Just take a moment with me. Feel your purpose and ground it. I'm not here just to be a successful mom or dad. I'm not here just to be somebody's best friend. I'm not here to just make money and think money's going to make me happy. Now, I'm not putting any of those things down. Those are the byproducts of seeking the kingdom first. And these other things shall be added to you. But we're old enough in this group, spiritually and physically, to realize that all the things we've done and tried that we thought was going to be the it has just never been. Let's turn this over to Spirit for just a moment. Let Spirit take these words and this message into the altar, and I don't mean just altar, but alter, altering consciousness. I want you to imagine in the upper part of your atmosphere of your mind, a beautiful little golden temple. Just a beautiful, small, golden temple. As you stand and see yourself before this temple, observing the doors of the temple, the doors effortlessly open. And you feel the pull to climb the stairways to the door of the temple. Each step brings you closer to the temple. And the closer you get, the more excited you are to find out what's going to be in the temple. What is the treasure in the temple? And as you enter in through the door of the temple, the same golden light that's on the outside is the golden light that is on the inside. Feel particles of golden light penetrating into the skin of your body, activating, making alive. Feel it in your head. Feel it in your brain, activating new neurons, holding old secrets and mysteries. Feel yourself expanding your consciousness. Everything is expanding. Hope is expanding. Love is expanding. And in the front of this little temple is a beautiful little altar. Maybe it has some crystals on it. Maybe it has a candle. Maybe it has a Buddha, or maybe it has a Jesus or Mother Mary, or whatever it is that you relate to is on this altar. Maybe there's a bowl, a sounding bowl, a vibration. And all of a sudden you begin to hear all those sounds activated, filling that temple with sound and vibration. Chimes, vibration. Each sound activating your potentials and possibilities. Breathe in and exhale. For the intention is for you to let go anything that is no longer serving you any longer, that has been and has its original roots in 3D. Creating new holy space, sacred space. Your inner light begins to shine through you as you are wearing a garment of light. Immersed, baptized into the light. And now upon this altar, I want you to take the message of today. The words, crises precedes transformation. If there's any fear of the future, any fear of what's going to happen in the world or in America, I want you to lay it upon that altar, because the golden light will transform it into itself, that nothing be lost. So as Buddha said, detach, detach. Detach. For even what part of this message I've not intellectually understood, my spirit has received it and shall bring it forth, fruit after its own kind. Now I want you to come back out of the temple, through the doors, down the step. See how you feel as you come out of the temple from when you went into the temple. And now as you return to your breath and into the awareness of this room,